पेपरलेस कोर्ट को नहीं बर्तन जो जातीय सम्मेलन जहां उद्घाटन कर डॉक्टर जस्टिस DY चंद्रचूड सुप्रीम कोर्ट प्रधान विचारपति वर्तमान अभिभाषण भी रखुछंती।
The learned Advocate General of Orissa, senior officers of the state, and ladies and gentlemen. Before I get into the more serious and even boring parts of my presentation, I must tell you that I was intrigued by this very distinct American twang in the neutral citations commentary. When Chief Justice Muralidhar whispered in my ear that that's the product of artificial intelligence. This is not a human agency, not an Indian trying to put on an accent. So I'm sure that you know the genesis of that. But it tells you what the enormous potential of technology is today. I have a few slides this morning to make my presentation. I thought of making a few slides because there's a great danger and tendency that when the Chief Justice of India speaks to the family of judges, you tend to meander into so many issues which are present in my mind and which I work every single day of my working day as a Chief Justice. There's a grave danger that I might break into issues which are of concern to me and not strictly relevant to this conference. So I thought I'll keep my own focus, so to speak, by having a few slides. And I've divided my slides into three areas. The first is the vision of phase 3. The second is the major activities which we want to envisage. And third, the roadmap. Now, what was the genesis of this conference? I think I have become a very constant visitor to Bhubaneswar and Cuttack, not the least of the reasons for which is that I'm proudly regarded as the son-in-law of Orissa because my wife is an Odia. But quite apart from that, I think the reason for my coming here so repeatedly is this dynamic engagement of Chief Justice Muralidhar with technology and the each court's project in our common mission to ensure that access to justice devolves to common citizens. So our purpose in pitchforking technology, and I believe I've pitchforked it as a central point of my mission as Chief Justice of India, is not to use technology to place it as some silo away from our citizens, but to ensure that we use technology to reach out to common citizens across the country. But the genesis of this conference was in my earlier visits to this beautiful state. And I was struck by the initiatives which have been taken by Chief Justice Muralidhar, whether it was in terms of the RRDC, which I had the pleasure of being associated with, or whether it was in terms of opening up virtual courts in all the districts in Orissa. Now I'm told by the learned Chief Justice that as many as 20 districts have virtual courts where lawyers can address the High Court sitting in their own districts. So technology has really obliterated in that sense the need for benches of the High Courts. Because you have a bench of the High Court in as many districts as you have set up virtual courts. And look at the enormous impact which this has. I say, speaking of my own court, that the Supreme Court of India is not the Supreme Court of Tilak Marg, but it's the Supreme Court for India, of India, by India. Likewise, each High Court is not really a High Court for the metropolitan capital of that state. Setting up these virtual courts across districts has enabled the Orissa High Court to truly be representative of the entire state, to ensure that there is access to justice for citizens across the state who want access to the High Court. Some of the finest lawyers are not necessarily lawyers who are confined to the capital cities of the states. Many of them don't move to the capital cities for lack of resources, for family reasons, for a variety of reasons that they are confined to their own districts. So why should they not have access to presenting their cases before the High Court? My experience in the Supreme Court is that when we have lawyers from across India now presenting arguments, both during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond, the only thing that they may lack perhaps is the swagger or the verve of people who regularly approach us in the Supreme Court. But they certainly have confidence, they have knowledge, and they have that close connect with their own litigants, their clients, who trust them. So the genesis of this conference began when I visited RRDC and I spoke to my good friend Murli, and I requested Murli, I said, was it not time for us to ensure that we unveil what you have done in terms of digitization for high courts across the country so that they can share our best practices? And that's how this conference came into being. Now, the vision of the eCourts project is to provide affordable, accessible, cost-effective, environmentally sustainable, transparent, and an accountable justice delivery system. Each of these phrases is not just a phrase of art or a label, but it signifies the core of our mission of reaching out to citizens, of replacing what was the earlier colonial model of the administration of justice, under which citizens had to reach out to courts. We seek to now replace it with a model where we reach out to citizens and allow us to provide every kind of resource and service to our citizens. Now, if you look at the outlay for phase 3 of the eCourts project, which is going to be between 2023 to 2027, the total outlay which we have envisaged is 7,210 crores. Of it, the outlay for 2023-24 is 2,024 crores, or nearly 2,025. 2024-25, 2,109.6. 2025-26, 1,523 crores. And 2026-27, 1,552 crores. Compare it with the outlays in phase 1 and phase 2. The outlay for phase 1 and phase 2 combined was...
ଆପଣ ଦେଖୁଥିଲେ ଡିୱାଇ ଚନ୍ଦ୍ରଚୂଡ଼ ଯେଉଁଭଳି ଭାବରେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଅଭିଭାଷଣ ରଖୁଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କର ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ସ୍ମୃତି କଥା ମଧ୍ୟ ମନେ ପକାଉଛନ୍ତି। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଆସନ୍ତୁ ଫେରିବା ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରପତିଙ୍କ ମୟୂରଭଞ୍ଜ ଗସ୍ତର ଶେଷ ଦିନ ଖବରକୁ। ଆଜି ଶେଷ ଦିନରେ ଶ୍ରୀରାମଚନ୍ଦ୍ର ଭଞ୍ଜଦେଓ ବିଶ୍ୱବିଦ୍ୟାଳୟରେ ଯେଉଁ ଅଭିଭାଷଣ ରଖିବେ, ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ରବୀନ୍ଦ୍ର ଜେନା ଆମ ସହିତ ଅଛନ୍ତି ଅଧିକ ଅପଡେଟ୍ ଦେବା ପାଇଁ। ରବୀନ୍ଦ୍ର, ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନର କ'ଣ ଅପଡେଟ୍? ଯେହେତୁ ଆଉ କିଛି ସମୟ ମଧ୍ୟରେ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକ୍ରମ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେବ,